Hi everyone, thanks very much for joining us this evening. It's really great to have so many people along with us this evening. I really do appreciate your time. My name is Joanne Duncan and I am a team manager in one of our ELC inspection teams. And if you are joining us this evening, we do hope that you are all familiar with the Care Inspectorate and our role as the scrutiny body for inspecting standards of care in Scotland. Now, a big part of our role and why we're here this evening is because we are also supporting improvement and we help services and providers to make those positive changes. So we're here this evening as part of a wider webinar series which started in June. And tonight we're going to be sharing some information with you about what it can mean to develop strong connections and meaningful relationships with children and their families in your settings. So I'm joined this evening by other colleagues from the Care Inspectorate, and I want to thank them for their dedication and commitment to creating this content for you all this evening. Taking you through the presentation tonight will be Lorna Dempsey and Kyla Steele from our ELC inspection teams. We're also joined on the call this evening by Jane Lynch, one of my ELC team manager colleagues, and Jane's supporting with the tech side of the event, a job that everybody usually wants to avoid. So thanks very much for supporting with that, Jane. We've also got Anne McIntosh, another ELC team manager, and Anne is going to be supporting with answering some of the content on the chat this evening. We're also very grateful and very privileged to be joined on the call by two professionals working in the sector who are going to be taking you through and talking to you about sharing some of their practice, their experience and their expertise on the topic. Firstly, we'll hear from Angie. Angie is a childminder operating her service from Fife. And we have Lorna Bradley from a private nursery setting in Renfrewshire. I really do want to express my gratitude to both Angie and Lorna for being part of tonight's presentation and sharing some of their practice examples with us all this evening. Thank you as well to yourself for joining us. We know how busy you are and how hard everybody's working throughout the day. So thank you not only for joining us and helping us share the great practice that you're all involved in, but also for the dedicated work that you're doing out there with children and families every day. You'll see that we're using an interactive presentation software this evening called AHA Slides. Now, this allows you to interact a little bit with our presentation and supports engagement as we go through. There's no difference to the slides that you'll see using AHA. It just gives us a better way to interact with you if you choose to do so. So if you use the QR code that's on the screen, you can scan that and it takes you to an interactive version of the slides. And we'll show you in a couple of moments how we're going to use that. You can also use the URL, the ahaslides.com, and put in the code if that's easier for you, and that'll just open it up in a new window. But for now, I'll give you an overview of tonight's content. Next slide, please, Jane. Thank you. And I can see quite a lot of people in AHA already, so that's great, you can access that. We do have a real full event for you this evening, and I'll shortly be passing over to Kyla and Lorna, who will be providing an overview of one of the Care Inspectorate's practice notes, our Me, My Family and My Childcare Setting document. And that focuses on building meaningful relationships between children, families and their childcare settings. We will be covering some of the key aspects and theme from the document, such as recognise, relate and reflect, which is a framework to create a family-centred culture. And we'll be looking at the importance of trust and cooperation to allow families and practitioners to work together to foster that sense of belonging. We know that there is some fantastic and innovative practice out there in the sector, and these sessions are a real great way to share that practice, share some of the practice that you're proud of, and it enables us to be the facilitator for settings to support one another, and that's something that we're really grateful for. So getting back to our AHA slides and that interactive part of the presentation, can we have the next slide, please, Jane? And we'll see how this works. Great, thank you. So we'd be really grateful if you could engage in our interactive poll and let us know how families engage in your setting and how you've encouraged this. Now, if you're having any difficulties accessing the AHA options, please feel free to just pop a comment into the Teams chat and we'll be able to access the comments there. I can see quite a lot coming through now, great. So I'm just going to see if I can have a look at some of these comments and look through them. Okay, so stay in place are a popular option, daily drop-offs, face-to-face, people using Seesaw, that interactive version, doorstop handover every day, so catching up every day, curriculum information evenings, book bug sessions. There's some family forums going on. That'd be really good to hear a little bit more about what kind of family forums you have going on. People using WhatsApp. There's some real great digital media alternatives nowadays. Speaking to each other at drop-off, newsletter, and those important times at pick-up and drop-off are so important. The app Seesaw people are using as well. Parent consultations, I see quite a lot coming in the chat. And if there's anything else coming in the chat, feel free to give us a shout.
Much the same, Joanne.
Yep.
Stay in plays, learning journals, quite a lot of face-to-face. I've just got one comment from someone that can't see the slides. I'm not sure if they can hear. That's from Shona. I'm not sure what you can do about that. Maybe clicking your camera on and off again might do the trick. I know that sounds obvious.
The slides will also be visible if you use the AHA. So if you join via aha.com and then put in the code, the UGUDY, you'll also see them that way.
Perfect.
You can follow along. So thanks very much for all of the comments. It was really just an opportunity to start that interactive process and see some of the practice that's in the sector as well. Because you have engaged so well with the comments, they've gone over quite a few pages. So Jane's going to take some time to just scroll through all of the comments to allow them all to be captured in the recording of this session, and you can go back and view them at a suitable time when the recording is live on our social media channel shortly after the evening. So thanks very much for your engagement and for your patience as Jane's just scrolling through the comments there to capture in the recording. I'm going to pass over to Lorna, who's going to give you a little background and some context for this evening. So thanks very much. Over to you, Lorna. And Jane, if you can just move the slides along when you've managed to capture them all, that would be smashing. Thank you very much. And thanks, everybody. Some comments still coming in. We've got 7 pages of them now. That's brilliant. Thanks, everybody.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to take you back just a little few years ago to the COVID-19 pandemic, when early years settings had to restrict parental access to protect public health. While this was necessary, these measures unintentionally disrupted one of the most vital aspects of early childhood care, and that is the relationship between families and practitioners. The COVID-19 Early Years Resilience and Impact Survey report from Public Health Scotland highlighted how these disruptions affected children's emotional well-being and development, parents' confidence and connection with their child's learning, and the overall sense of community and trust within the settings. Now that COVID-19 is no longer a public health emergency, we have a critical opportunity to rebuild these relationships and support strong connections with families and create those powerful relationships that foster trust, emotional security, and collaborative support for every child. As we know, during the pandemic, these necessary restrictions meant that parents were often kept at arm's length from the settings where their children spent much of their time. Now we are reinforcing the importance of shifting focus back to what truly matters, and that is welcoming parents into settings and rebuilding those powerful relationships that support every child's development. So just going to take you through some of the wee headings on the slide there. So children thrive when adults collaborate. When children see their parents and caregivers working together, it builds trust and emotional safety. These secure attachments are the foundation for confident, resilient learners. Collaboration between home and setting help children feel supported and understood. Parents are partners, not visitors. We've moved away from the idea that parents simply drop off and pick up their children. Instead, we're inviting them into the heart of the setting, into the routines, into the play, and into the learning. When parents are involved, they feel empowered and informed, and children benefit from that continuity between home and care. Rebuilding community and resilience. The pandemic fractured many of our support networks. Families were isolated and settings had to operate behind closed doors. By welcoming our families back, we're restoring that sense of belonging and shared purpose. And we're rebuilding our communities where everyone plays a part in the child's journeys. Better outcomes for children. When practitioners and parents communicate openly, we can tailor support to each child's unique needs and interests, and this leads to more consistent care, stronger emotional well-being, and better developmental outcomes. Next slide, please, Jane. So we are absolutely delighted tonight to welcome our first guest speaker, Angie, an experienced and well-respected childminder from Fife, who brings a wealth of knowledge and insight from her work in early learning and childcare.
Hi.
Hi, Angie, how are you?
Hi, good.
Good. Okay, so I've got a couple of questions for you, and I'd really like you to share your responses with everyone on the call. So Angie, can you share how you involve families in their child's learning and development and how you celebrate progress together?
Well, obviously I use shared PLGs, shared next steps, review meetings. That covers the basics, so to speak. However, we do send quite a lot of photos and videos to celebrate everyday achievements, milestones, or just the joys of the child's experience that day. For example, someone climbing up an embankment and then sliding back down, or independently hanging a pulley or a tree swing for the first time, is very well received from a parent, and it lets them see how their child's development's progressing from week to week. Photos are often reciprocated, where parents will send photos potentially to myself, giving a small glimpse into the child's life, maybe the child with a grandparent or a sibling. And this is obviously extending the learning and building a sense of belonging. Grandparents will often be involved, and I'll maybe receive messages asking, where is a particular beach or green space that we've used? They'll take the child to a familiar environment, and we've even had families leaving us painted stones and things for the next time, which is always a little bit of a surprise.
That's great, Angie. And just for a wee bit of context for everybody, Angie works predominantly in the outdoors across the beautiful beaches in Fife.
We do. We spend, I should have said that at the start, we spend all of our day, usually from 9 till about 3 o'clock outdoors. So we're quite the outdoors. That actually takes me on to my second point. Given that we're taking babies and toddlers outdoors to beaches and woodland, it's imperative that the parents can trust myself and build a confidence in my setting. And to do that, I'm sharing my knowledge and my information with the families regularly about outdoor play and risky play, and what this might mean for a baby or a toddler or even a preschooler, what that might look like. And from sharing that, then they can then share in the child's next steps. They can work collaboratively with myself to further strengthen the trust that we've got. And building our connection, just keeping the child at the centre.
Absolutely, that's great, Angie, and it's really good to hear about that, sharing that knowledge and that understanding with the families so that they fully appreciate everything that you're doing.
And it's sometimes worth remembering that families do know the child best, and it's not always about what we think about the child. So they will most definitely have valuable information to share back. It's two ways.
Yeah, that's great. Absolutely. That just shows the importance of building those really strong, positive relationships with your families. So the next question, Angie, how do you tailor your approach to reflect the unique values, cultures and routines of each family, and how do you show that these are respected in your setting?
So I'll give you two examples. All families that are attending, they're all different. There's never a one-size-fits-all approach to making connections and building meaningful relationships. And I personally tailor my approach to each individual family that's coming along. And there is actually a section of society out there that can't access any childcare provision at all. And that's due to things like illness, a bereavement of a parent or another sibling, addiction, elderly kinship carers. And I tend to reach out to those families because I'm in a unique position to offer visits at the child's home. Zoom meetings if they can't attend my setting, pick up and drop off for the child, handover and feedback at their own home, send photos and videos of the child's day and share their PLJ a little bit more often, and having something that they can write back and forth in if they can't actually attend your setting. So unswerving kindness, really, and out of the box thinking, these families can be included too. And it's just something to think about, that out there is families that are looking for people to build connections with them in a little bit of a different way. So that's one thing that I think is unique for childminders, that we are well placed to offer these families a connection and a sense of community and belonging. So yeah.
That's great, Angie. Thank you so much. And thanks again for your time. We really appreciate it. And I know that others on the call this evening will benefit from some of your insights. So thank you very much.
No problem.
Thank you. I'm now going to pass over to Kyla.
Everyone, thanks again, Angie. That was really insightful. So we're going to look at the Me, My Family and My Childcare Setting document, because it strongly advocates for families being physically present in their child's setting. We know that this presence of families in the setting really fosters trust, it strengthens relationships, and it helps to support children's emotional well-being. When we build those strong connections with families, it really aids us in identifying and implementing early intervention, and it helps us to reduce the occurrence of children leaving the setting. The document really centralises around three main principles. The first principle is recognise. So this is really about identifying the child's unique backgrounds, including their family structure, cultural heritage, and their personal experiences. And it includes acknowledging the values, the routines, and the relationships that really shape that child's identity and development. In order to collate this information from parents and ensure that it's current, we really are requiring an open and trusting relationships where parents feel they can and want to share that information with the setting. The second principle is relate. And this is about making that connection between the child's home life and their experiences in the childcare setting. That means building bridges between familiar routines and new learning environments. In doing so, it's supporting this emotional security and providing that continuity for the children. The third principle is reflect. This is about giving careful consideration to how childcare settings can adapt to better support children's needs, values and identity. Once you've gathered all that information from the parents and you've got that partnership, it's important to consider how then this information will be used. That requires reflection on your practices, interactions, environments to ensure that they're inclusive, respectful and responsive to each child's needs, values and identities. This approach, as identified in that document, helps practitioners create a family-centred culture that respects and celebrates each child's individuality and their family context as well. So I'd like to pause here and just have a reflection on how you recognise the role of families in your setting, and maybe share that within the AHA slide, exactly the same way that you did before. And we'll just need probably a minute or two just to start collecting some of those responses. So we're just reflecting on, how do you recognise the role of families in your setting? And we'll put it up on the AHA slide again. Oh, they're already starting to come in. That's great. I'll just give everybody a minute to do that. Okay, we've got some great responses here. So we've got feedback from your stay in plays, questionnaires, surveys. Through your care plans, you recognise parents. You're building relationships through your open door policy. So again, that's your policies. Home visits, active listening, questionnaires, suggestion boxes, support plans, daily chats with parents. Again, we're seeing that open door policy as well. And I think it's important when you've got that the parents are really familiar with it as well. So those are some great examples, and we'll slide through them so that they feature on that if you want to watch any of them back.
Can I just read some from the chat, Kyla, just to make sure these
absolutely.
are captured as well? So we've got some really great response in the chat as well, so thanks for that. Somebody's saying that they've got families to write hello or bye on the door with chalk pens in their language, I think. They've got flags from where all the families are on display, so celebrating that diverse culture. A lot of information about families that are partners. Question of the month. Communication is key. Absolutely, Lorraine, definitely. Open door policy. You said we did. Lots of really good. Somebody does Facebook polls with families as well. So lots of really similar responses coming through on the chat. So thanks very much for adding those all on. Other people doing suggestion boxes at the door as well. Great, thanks for sharing that, everybody.
Thank you. And as I say, Anne in the background is scrolling through it. So if you want to watch the webinar back when it goes live, you can do that, because there's so many good ideas in there. Next slide, please. So in order to build those strong relationships with families, we must identify and embed some key values throughout the practice. So within the me, my family and my childcare setting, there is a framework that really emphasises on the core values that are trust, cooperation and respect, recognising them as essential to build those strong relationships. We know that trust is the cornerstone of any meaningful relationship. So when families in childcare settings trust each other, they create a secure emotional climate where the child knows that they're loved, protected, and guided by people who genuinely care. This trust is built through transparent communication, consistency in care, and shared decision making. For the child, this creates a deep sense of security and confidence in their relationships. They learn that they're surrounded by people who will advocate for them, who support them, and help them to thrive. These bonds of trust become powerful connections and shape the child's ability to form healthy relationships throughout their life. The next value is cooperation. So when families in childcare settings are actively cooperating with one another, they create a shared environment of support, and that reinforces the child's sense of belonging. This cooperation goes beyond caring logistics. It's also about shared values, open communication, and mutual commitment to the child's emotional and developmental needs. Through consistent collaboration, the child's experiences are unified in a network of care. But like what Angie was saying there, where you've got both family and childcare settings working together to celebrate achievements and navigate the challenges. This kind of partnership builds powerful connections, and the child then can rely upon that, and it builds an important foundation of stability and trust. And the last value in this document is respect. Respect between the family and the childcare setting is demonstrated through an acknowledgement of each other's unique roles in the child's life. So when a child sees their childcare setting and the family treating each other with kindness, listening actively and valuing each other's perspectives, they learn that relationships are built on mutual appreciation and dignity. And this cultivates a meaningful relational model for the child, one that teaches them how to engage respectfully with others and understand the importance of diverse contributions in their life. These respectful interactions become powerful emotional anchors and really help the child to feel safe and secure. So what we're going to do once again is reflect on our own practice and think about how it is that you embed these values in your setting. And again, we're going to use the same process, the AHA slide. Again, if you want to put something in the chat, that's fine as well. We'll just have a wee minute for people to put something up. Shared ethos. Got the Shinari Wellbeing floor books. Treating everyone as individuals. Consulting parents on the values and aims of the nursery so that right from the very beginning they have a say on the ethos. listening to parents. Got the children's rights in there, as well as Shinari wellbeing indicators as well. Honest communication. These are great examples. I can't see in the chat, Joanne, if there's any really good ones coming up in there. Maybe you could shout them out for me.
People are talking about a UNCRC day each week, and they use their floor books. A lot of information coming through about respect is key too, both ways, and that does come down to your ethos and your vision, values and aims, and how that is co-created with families, isn't it? People talking about nurturing approaches, manners, Shinari, floor books, and the ethos of the setting, absolutely. That's what it all comes down to in that open communication.
Absolutely. There's a couple of really good examples in here about celebrating the child and family's achievements and having those needs-based conversations with parents. So, you know, having those conversations that are meaningful and valuable and will inform the care and learning that's received whilst they're in the setting. Listening to families in respect both ways. Yeah. So there's lots of really good examples. And again, we'll scroll through them all so that they can all be seen. And I'm going to hand you back over to Lorna now. So next slide, please.
So I'm going to talk a wee bit about the SSC codes of practice and how they support family and positive family relationships. So the SSC codes of practice set out the professional standards and behaviours expected of those working in early learning and childcare, ensuring safe, respectful and high quality care that supports positive outcomes for children and their families. Now we know that childminders are not required to register with the SSC, but we do know that they consistently uphold the values and professional standards outlined in the codes of practice. These same standards, which are mandatory for staff in nursery and out of school care settings, play a vital role in shaping respectful, trusting and meaningful relationships with families across the early learning and childcare sector. So you can see on the table that we've broken these down into some elements, and the first element is trust and confidence. Practitioners build trust with families through honest, respectful and consistent communication, creating the foundation for strong partnerships. Rights and interests. Families are respected and included in decision-making with practitioners, actively promoting the rights and voices of children and their families. Well-being and independence. By creating safe, nurturing environments, practitioners support children's well-being and development, reassuring families that their child is thriving. Accountability and improvement. Practitioners reflect on their practice, welcome feedback and commit to ongoing improvement, showing families that their views are valued. Confidence in care. Families gain confidence knowing their child is supported by a skilled, compassionate and professional workforce. The revised codes of practice emphasise that families should feel confident that their child is being cared for by skilled, knowledgeable and valued workforce. This confidence stems from practitioners demonstrating competence, compassion and a deep understanding of child development. When families see that staff are well trained and supported, it enhances their overall experience and satisfaction within the service. Altogether, these principles help foster respectful, inclusive and supportive relationships with families in ELC settings. They encourage a culture of partnership where families are seen as key contributors to their child's learning journey and where practitioners are trusted allies in nurturing each child's potential. I'm going to pass back over to Kyla for the next part. So next slide, please, Jane.
Thanks, Lorna. So the next slide is going to have a look at, so hopefully you've all heard of and seen the newly published Quality Improvement Framework for Early Learning and Childcare sectors, created in partnership with Education Scotland and the Care Inspectorate. It is a tool that we use to evaluate and improve early learning and childcare services. However, these frameworks are not just tools for inspection. They are designed to support a culture of reflection, collaboration and continuous improvement. A central theme across the frameworks is the importance of family engagement in delivering high quality care and learning. These frameworks are aligned with the principles of the United Nations Conventions of the Rights of the Child, which places children at the heart of the practice. This includes the rights of the families to have their voices heard and for their views to be taken seriously. In practice, that means that the service might create opportunities for family to share their views through surveys, informal conversations, structured consultations, and for them to demonstrate how these views influence decisions. The impact of this is that families then see their voices reflected in the policies, the routines, and the learning experiences. And this strengthens the trust of the setting to keep the children safe and reinforces their role as partners in their child's development. The quality indicators within the framework help us to assess how well services provide nurturing environments, not just for the children, but for the families too. And in practice, this requires practitioners to build warm, respectful relationships with families, offer emotional support, and work collaboratively to meet children's needs. When your families feel welcomed, valued, and supported, it fosters an experience that encourages ongoing engagement. A setting that understands and meets children's needs helps them feel secure and fully engaged, creating for them a safe and nurturing environment. The framework encourages services to critically evaluate on their practices, including how effectively they engage with families. This may involve using feedback tools, facilitating reflective team discussions, or involving families in the improvement planning. Such approaches create a dynamic cycle where families' input directly shapes service development. This results in a more responsive, inclusive care for the children, and it puts the children's safety and well-being at the centre of the service. The framework is also there to help establish a shared language and understanding of what actually high-quality care entails. At the heart of this vision is the belief that strong partnerships with families are vital. Through collaboration, staff, families and children, they co-create the learning environments and experiences that reflect shared values and goals. This collective approach promotes consistency, mutual respect, and a strong sense of partnership and belonging for families within the childcare setting. So I'm going to hand you back to Lorna now for the next slide.
So the SSSC Codes of Practice and a quality improvement framework for the early learning and childcare sectors work in harmony to support and strengthen relationships with families across early learning and childcare services. The SSSC Codes of Practice set that ethical and professional standards that guides practitioners in early learning and childcare. They promote respectful, inclusive and compassionate interactions with families, ensuring honesty, transparency and accountability in daily practice. By committing to continuous professional development, staff help create environments where families feel safe, valued and actively involved in their child's care and learning. A quality improvement framework for early learning and childcare sectors provides a unified approach to evaluating and improving early learning and childcare services. It places strong emphasis on family engagement as a key marker of quality. Services are supported to listen to children and families, build nurturing services and relationships, and use self-evaluation tools to reflect on their practice. At its core, the framework promotes a shared understanding of quality, where strong family partnerships drive high-quality care and learning. Working together and embedding family engagement in early learning and childcare is strengthened when ethical standards and quality frameworks work together. The SSSC Codes of Practice and the Quality Improvement Framework for early learning and childcare sectors ensure that involving families is not just encouraged, it's embedded in the values, expectations and evaluation of the service. This alignment promotes consistency across settings, fosters genuine partnerships with families, and drives that continuous improvement through shared goals and feedback. The impact of this on children and their families when these approaches are used together, families feel respected, heard, and actively involved in their child's learning. Practitioners are supported to build strong, trusting relationships, and children benefit from safe, nurturing environments where their rights and well-being are at the centre of care. Next slide, please. We want to touch slightly on personal planning and the importance of a collaborative approach. Joanne's going to pop a link to our personal planning guidance in the chat for you to have a wee look at if you haven't already, but I think most of you will be familiar with the personal planning guidance. We all know that personal planning is a legal requirement for all registered care services, including early learning and childcare. Legislation states that every child must have a personal plan in place within 28 days of starting the service, and this is regardless of how frequently they attend. These plans are expected to be living documents which are developed in partnership with families, they're regularly reviewed and responsive to the child's changing needs. This requirement ensures that care is individualised, safe and effective, supporting each child's well-being and development. So personal planning is central to delivering high-quality, child-centred care. It ensures each child's voice is heard and their individual needs are met through close collaboration with families. Rooted in the principles of UNCRC and GIRFEC, personal plans promote inclusion, safety and well-being. They're more than just a record. A personal plan is a meaningful tool that helps practitioners tailor experiences and build nurturing relationships. They support consistency across staff, especially during transitions, and informs decisions around risk and staffing to keep children safe. Effective personal planning also drives improvement. Through regular reviews and reflections, it supports self-evaluation and aligns with the shared framework for early learning and childcare sectors. What makes a good plan? Well, a good plan is dynamic, it's developed through genuine partnership with families and, where appropriate, the child. It reflects strengths, routines and preferences, and it evolves as the children grow and their needs change. Plans should be clear, accessible and actively used in daily practice, and not just popped in a filing cabinet somewhere in the office. The Shinari Wellbeing Indicators guide this process. They help practitioners understand each child's experience and identify where support could be needed. When used thoughtfully, personal planning becomes a holistic and responsive approach to nurturing every child's potential. So a final thought, personal plans are the foundation of high quality, child-centred care, ensuring every child is understood, supported and nurtured, and kept safe through meaningful partnerships with families. I'm now going to pass back over to Kyla. And next slide, please, Jane.
Thanks, Lorna. So we wanted to take a minute just to highlight that within the guidance, the Me, My Family and My Childcare setting, there are some practice examples for you to explore and reflect against your own practice. And I think Anne or Jane's going to put a link in the chat for that. So if you haven't looked at that before, then you can get access there, but it is available in the hub. I'd really like to welcome guest speaker number 2, which is Lorna Bradley from a private nursery in Renfrewshire. It's a great honour for us to have her here speaking tonight.
Hi there.
Hi Lorna, thank you very much for coming along. It's really appreciated. So we wanted to get your perspective on how you develop those partnerships with parents, and you've got some good examples from your practice that you were going to share with us all.
Okay, so initially what we would like to do with families prior to starting nursery is we have house visits. And during the house visits, the nursery deputy attends and another senior member of staff, and they go along obviously to meet the family in their own home, and they take with them the child's personal plan and Shinari indicators, and obviously kind of introducing that to the families at that time and really kind of trying to get a feel for the family's needs and child's needs, and trying to make that connection with the family at that point, and really kind of trying to establish, we're very aware of the fact that establishing these relationships early on are going to really kind of develop a foundation for us as we go along, and from there we explain to parents that the settling processes will really be individualised and very in the needs of the families and the babies. The majority of our children starting with us are babies, so we appreciate how difficult that is for families, really building trust with us, and it's how we build those relationships with the families very early on, really, because we have to build that, especially for the babies that can't come home and say, well, today this happened or that happened. So we really do it in the settling process. Is really kind of dictated by the children and the families and their needs.
Thank you very much, Lorna. And you do something that we discussed recently about working in partnership with parents regarding risk assessments. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the process that you've got there?
Okay, so when obviously we're having reviews with parents, we use scenario indicators when we're using our personal plans to update those, and we send the scenario indicators home with some guidance to parents for them to actually give some details and have an understanding, then trying to educate parents as well about our scenario and our ENC and our values. So at that point there'll be discussions with parents, and we're talking about outings and risk assessings, and what we really were keen for them to kind of highlight any kind of previous concerns that they've had with children, maybe on outings, for example. Is there any children maybe do they become unsettled around unfamiliar adults or animals and these sorts of things? So we can take that all into consideration. So we do a risk assessment and an outings for every outing that we have in the nursery to document obviously any children, to try and mitigate risk and to make sure we note any additional supports or additional staff that may be required for that.
Oh, brilliant, Lorna. Thank you very much. And so you're tailoring those risk assessments based on the cohort of children you've got,
Yes.
based on that partnership communication sharing that you've created with parents.
Yes.
How do you think that impacts your staff in terms of their, you know, their working with the children? Do you think that partnership with parents has an impact on their
Yes,
job?
I think staff are very, very confident. They know their children very, very well. These initial house visits, lots and lots of settlings. Parents are such transparency. Parents are in the nursery. They can see a day-to-day. It's not a snapshot. It's not just maybe a photograph or a daily update through Seesaw. They're in and they're seeing actually what's happening in the nursery. So you can see them building their confidence, and staff, because they're working with parents so closely, really getting to know those children and getting to kind of really build confidence. The staff really know the children very well.
Yeah, thank you very much, Lorna. I really appreciate you coming along and sharing those examples with us.
Thank you.
Next slide, please. So the point you made there just about being competent and confident in supporting families and children, I think that's important to mention that really aligns closely with the safe staffing legislation. So the Health and Care Staffing Scotland Act really highlights the importance of staff being fully competent, and building those strong partnerships with families really supports this requirement, because it enables staff to better meet children's needs, and then they're assuring them that the delivery is of high quality care. So our Safe Staffing Advisor, Glow, explored this topic in much more detail in the June webinar. So if you missed it, we would encourage you to go back to the first session in the series on the YouTube channel. And what we'll do is we'll share the link in the chat with you, as well as some other additional resources that are related to that Safer Staffing Act as well. So as before, I'd like to invite attendees just to share some examples of how they are working in partnerships with parents. Again, we're going to use that AHA slide. So we'll just have a couple of minutes to put them up. But again, it's about thinking about how you work in partnership with parents in your setting. So we've got some good examples coming up already. We'll just give everybody a wee minute to put some up. So we've got some translators brought into meetings if needed as well. So that's a good way to ensure that you've got that inclusivity and communication. Removing barriers, creating support plans. Involving parents in writing the policies and values. And I think encouraging them to share milestones is really good as well. It's good if we can have that sense of achievement in collaboration with the families. So we're celebrating what they're achieving out with the nursery setting as well. All about me forms. Got home visits again. That's a good one. Just I don't know what just too easy is. Is that sort of a progression on from all about me? Notice boards, parent consultations, creating individual targets realistic to the child's needs, recognising wider achievements, wow moments, home links. Some really good examples there. So thank you so much for sharing them. Is there any good ones in the chat, Joanne, that you want to shout out?
Yeah, lots of good things coming in the chat, and I just want to talk about one I've spotted. It's scrolling away from me, sorry. Being aware of the promise and supporting parents from care experience backgrounds by listening to their own life experiences. And that's a really valuable way to make the parents feel included, but also to support with our own development and knowledge of such important topics. Other people are talking about involving parents, families in their aims and their values, going back to what we spoke about right at the start of this evening. Supporting parents, learning their language as well, family networking with their extended families as well. Yeah, lots of really good suggestions coming through. Thanks very much for sending all of these in.
Yeah, there's a lot of really good ones there. Using the Solihull training as well, lots of different family apps, using the dojos. So there's some technology in there as well. And I think these are good for capturing those parents that maybe work full time and they can't quite always attend things during the day. So there's lots of ideas in there. So thank you so much, everybody, for sharing them. And so we'll move on to the next slide, if that's okay. So on the Care Inspectorate Hub, you'll find that there's a suite of resources that includes guidance and practice notes. In addition, we've got the recorded webinars on the YouTube channel that we advise watching if you haven't done so already. One key resource that we wanted to highlight was the Samoa practice notes that a lot of people are very familiar with. That's about the safety, inspect, monitor, observe and act. And these really help to keep children safe while supporting their development. So the Samoa notes focus on 4 key areas. Firstly, trips and outings, so encouraging staff to think about safety during excursions while still allowing children to explore and learn. It highlights transitions and supports smooth and safe transitions between activities or between settings, helping children feel safe and connected. It also highlights the importance of curiosity and exploration and promotes that safe environment where children can be curious, creative, and develop that sense of wonder. And lastly, it explores the importance of positive mealtime experiences, and within it, it does offer some guidance on providing nutritious meals in a safe, supportive and enjoyable setting. The Samoa practice notes highlight the importance of those strong relationships again, understanding individual needs and creating environments where children feel protected, respected and free to play and learn. So another resource that we've discussed already is the Me, My Family and Childcare setting. So just to reiterate that this resource really emphasises the importance of family involvement, having parents in the setting, and the childcare setting as part of the child's daily experience is having that family involvement. And it encourages you to reflect on your access policies, your communication practices, and how you engage with families in a daily routine and transitions. It uses the recognise, relate and reflect approach to build trust, cooperation and emotional security that we spoke about earlier on in the webinar. It also encourages the setting to evaluate and improve how families are welcomed into the setting. So just reiterating that as well. We also spoke a little bit about the quality improvement framework for early learning and childcare. So one of the key indicators in the framework is actually nurturing care and support, which includes the theme on connection with families. So this really encourages settings to create a welcoming, inclusive environment for families, build those trusting relationships with parents and carers, and use family insights to inform care and learning plans. We want to see families involved in the decision making about their child's care and support. So as Lorna mentioned earlier on, the importance again of those personal care plans. There is a guidance called Personal Planning with Families, and I think we'll put that in the chat for you as well, but it is available on the Care Inspectorate's Hub. This guidance discusses how personal planning should be collaborative, so developed with the children and their families, individualised, so it should be tailored to each child's strengths, their needs and their interests, and it should be holistic. So it considers well-being, transitions and cultural context. Families are to be seen as active partners in shaping their child's experiences. So it also encourages some self-evaluation using reflective questions. So it's asking things like, how are we doing? How do we know? What are we going to do now? And this helps staff assess how well they engage with families and identify areas for development. There's also the Connecting Your Childcare Setting, a guide for families. So this helps parents understand the importance of building strong connections with childcare settings. It also includes reflective questions for parents to consider how well they feel connected to the setting, and it also offers insights into how relationships support their child's well-being and development. You might want to consider sharing that link with your families, because it can help to foster a shared ethos, and it can help some parents deepen their understanding of why meaningful relationships contribute to that high quality care. So I'm going to hand you back to Joanne now for final reflection and questions.
Thanks very much, Kyla. And, thanks very much, Kyla and Lorna, for taking us through our presentation this evening. And I'm really sure that everybody will agree that Angie and Lorna's insight added great value to the key points that we've covered this evening, from that individualised care and support to, Angie said, unswerving kindness. And somebody's actually picked up that comment in the comments section as well, because they really loved that. And I think it speaks quite high volumes about the values names in your service as well. So I love that unswerving kindness. If you would like to use the hand function, we will invite you in, and hopefully you'll be able to unmute yourself if you want to come on and ask a question or leave a comment. Please also feel welcome to turning on your camera if you want to. There's no obligation, because I do appreciate we are still recording, and the recording of the Q&A does really allow others to benefit from your questions if they couldn't attend this evening. Or you could use the chat function if you prefer, and we'll try our best to answer as many questions as we can before we go back to another couple of final slides for reflections after we've done the Q&A section. So would anybody like to come in? I'll try and see if I can see any hands raised. Even if anybody wanted to come on and share any reflections about something they've maybe recognised in their own practice. Or if our guest speakers are still on, if anybody's got any additional questions about something that they've spoken about. It's been great to hear best practice from other practitioners. I would agree, Laura. People are saying in the comments that it's good to see how the documents link together to ensure positive relationship building. Yeah, thanks for that comment, Wendy. Sometimes it can feel a little overwhelming with all the documents, but it's just about understanding how they dovetail and how they do support that positive outcomes for children and that high quality care when they're used in tandem with one another. People are saying great idea earlier of familiarising parents and families with Shinari. Some families may not be familiar with the indicators and what they mean other than just on their care plan. So it's another good way for involvement. Yeah, absolutely. So many good tips from other practitioners. And we find that, thanks for saying that, Emma, we do find that these sessions are really great opportunities for everybody to come on and share the great work that you're all involved in the sector. Lindsay's coming on to say, does anyone else do a number of these things but get no engagement back from parents? And how do other practitioners navigate this? So if anybody does have any good really hints or tips about how you support that engagement from parents, certainly in my experience, it's about getting that from the outset. So when you are starting those settling periods and you're talking about the service provided, it is about really supporting parents to buy into the vision, values and aims of your service, and supporting that communication right from the early stages of the child's involvement in the setting. If anybody's had any experience of this and has any other ways that they've managed to navigate this, it'd be great to hear your experiences, or you can pop them on the chat. Some people struggling with parental engagement on their digital apps that they used. Sorry, the chat's quite busy, so it's difficult to try and keep up with some of the comments. Somebody's offering tea and a cup of chat, and that seems to work when arranging at pickup. That's a good point that somebody's popped in about doing things on the weekend. they're a bit worried about that and making sure that staff get time back, because you've related that to the Staffing Act. And absolutely, the Health and Care Staff in Scotland Act is there to support the staff and make sure that their health and wellbeing is considered in order to allow them to do their role in a high quality way. And Bryony, would you like to come in and ask a question? I wonder if Bryony can unmute herself. Oh, let me try.
Joanne, we've got a question from Bryony
Hi.
in the chat. Oh, there she is.
Yeah,
It's
she's
okay,
trying to
I'll
get
be
in.
quiet.
Hi, Bryony.
Hi. Sorry, I put it in the chat, but then everybody's chatting a lot. It was just to ask, for settings that do home visits at the start of kind of building the relationship with nursery, how do you risk assess that for staff? Because obviously there are some situations you don't know the families, you don't know what you're walking into. How do you risk assess that?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something that you're right to consider for staff safety, but also thinking about the Health and Care Staff in Scotland Act. And it's about how you risk assess any situation, I suppose, that you've not been into before. It's about understanding what are the risks and putting the mitigations in place. So if there are significant risks, then you're thinking about people going out in pairs or being supported to go out, so that you're not got somebody going into an unknown situation or setting on their own. It's about making sure that they are aware of how they feel safe and being connected with their emotions. So if they feel that they're in an unsafe situation, they would take appropriate actions for that. So if you're going into somebody's home, you would be making sure that the staff are aware that the door's not locked behind them, for example, that they are always within clear access to being able to exit a building, and
Right.
going through safety measures with them. And it's really important to make sure that they feel safe. So if people are a little bit nervous about going into settings, could they start with potentially garden visits? So they're not necessarily going into people's home until they build up the trust with people. It's about finding that common ground, but really listening to the practitioners. Perhaps making sure that they do have a mobile phone with them so that they can phone if there was any help needed, and always making sure that somebody knows where they are. So if the practitioner is going to a home visit, then they've got the address, they know how long they need to be in the home and what time the service expect them back.
Right, okay, thank you.
If there's anybody else who's done home visits and they've got other things involved in the risk assessment, we'd really appreciate you popping them in the chat. There's people talking about doing initial home visits, but in the local park, so in a more public space.
All right, okay, I hadn't thought of that.
We used to do home visits in the past as well, and we used to link up with the health visitor. So it's a real good opportunity as well to make those connections with our allied health professional teams as well, because quite often some of the teams from the health sector have already been in these people's homes, so they've been there before. So it's about just making those connections in a multi-agency way and trying to think about what is the best way to move forward, also to support the family.
Okay, that's great, thank you.
Thank you.
Joanne, also prior to we have our house visits, we've welcomed the families into the nursery setting prior to a house visit. So obviously then the staff know who they're going to meet, and there also will be 2 staff members that would go to a house visit, and it is always the nursery deputy and a senior staff member also.
Brilliant, thanks Lorna.
Joanne, can I just come to the chat here? Dana has asked, can someone tell me what they do on the UNCRC day with the children? Have maybe MDs available to answer that or put something in the chat?
Yeah, it'd be great to see what sort of practice is out there when you're thinking about that specific day, or anything that you've done to support the children's knowledge and development and the parents' awareness of the UNCRC. Somebody's popped in the chat as well, Bryony, that they have a code word to use if they feel unsafe. Lots of really good ideas and sharing of information.
Joanne, can I come in and
Yes,
there's a comment from Elaine, and it's about finding it very disruptive to children when parents come in and out of the setting. especially younger children, who can become very upset if it's not their parent. So they encourage doorstep pickups and drop-offs, and actually they're asking if they'll be penalised at inspections. So my kind of thoughts around this is that we would absolutely encourage that families are entering your premises, whether it's a childminder in their own home or whether it's a nursery setting. Now, the reason that we want to do that, I think, has been absolutely well demonstrated throughout this webinar. What I would suggest is that you start very gradually, because obviously, yes, children can become upset when it's people that they're not familiar with. However, this builds resilience, and over time, relationships with other parents, etc., will build. It might be a good idea to invite parents and children to maybe attend together so that they start to become familiar with one another. I think it's just really important that families are seeing what's actually happening inside a setting, what the children are involved in, and very gradually and if you use, real creativity, you'll find ways to break down the barriers and for younger children to start to build relationships, across, whether it's other families, etc. In relation to whether or not you'll be penalised at inspections, inspections are about considered best practice. And again, I think this webinar has indicated exactly what we see as best practice. Is that okay, Joanne?
Yes, thanks very much for coming in and spotting that question, Jane. There's a lot of chat now going, so it's really difficult to pick them all up, so thank you. And it's great to see a lot of people in the chat supporting one another. So somebody's offered to send something that they do around the UNCRC days. So I think there's a lot of people thumbsing up that comment, Jennifer. So I think there's a lot of people really keen to see what you do. Somebody's used Elmer to gain children's thoughts on their rights, picking different points to focus on. So I think that's maybe about picking different articles, is it, that you focus on? And that's a good thing about being able to facilitate these sessions. It's about the sector sharing the practice that they have and being able to share that with one another. So there's lots of people asking for that information to be shared now, Jennifer. Somebody's got a rights bear that goes home with the learner and linking experiences to the UNCRC. And that really supports staff confidence as well by connecting those daily experiences and play opportunities and experiences that children have every day with the UNCRC to support staff's understanding of how they are actually supporting children to uphold their rights. Because some practitioners who have spoken to in the past, they don't recognise how they're doing that, but actually when I just listen to a little bit about their practice, they're absolutely upholding children's rights. It's just about recognising how the articles link with their practice.
Joanne, can I just pop in here again? There was a few people in the chat just talking about the challenges that they're having with getting people, parents to engage when they're putting on lots of engagement opportunities for parents. And I think there's a couple of things to take away from that, and that is that it can be very useful to equip parents with the knowledge and understanding of why that's important. And that's why there's the documents there, Me, My Family, My Childcare setting. There's the one for the setting, giving them the information, and then there's the one for the parents' perspective. And I think equipping parents with that knowledge and understanding allows them to understand why this is an important step in that partnership and what the benefits to the child are for that as well. So I think if they understand a bit more about it, then they might be more likely to engage with it. And I think the other thing is that there can be lots of things that work for some people and not for other people. So it can be a case of maybe looking at digitally it suits some people to connect more that way, whereas other people prefer face-to-face, whether other people really need that flexibility. So that one size isn't going to fit everybody. So it might be a case of trying many different things in a sort of more sizable chunk so that everybody gets a chance to engage in a way that suits them.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jenna's actually related to that comment as well to say, I think it's also about asking families how they want to be included, breaking down those barriers, recognising that each year will be different depending on the different family circumstances. So it's that really individualised support, isn't it? They use parent council reps to reach out to others too. And quite often, depending on parent or family's individual experiences that they've had with any form of education, can really impact the way that they engage with their childcare setting. So using the parent reps to reach out to other families is a real good idea, a good way of doing that as well. Okay. So hopefully everybody's going to be able to share that information. I don't know if people's email addresses are available to share that information, if people can see that, because I know that a lot of people are asking for information to be shared that they're sharing in their practice. So you can continue commenting on the chat about sharing those practice ideas, because people will be able to take them away with them. Somebody's talking about building those relationships from the start and knowing your family's need. They start to use an engagement tracker to track what families were attending and what opportunities and experiences are attended well, to know where to go next. Yeah, so very much about self-evaluating the process that you've been involved in. And I think summed up by Lorraine there, lovely, every parent is different. It's finding what suits the individual family, absolutely. Okay. Great, thanks very much for that. Some really great practice shared there. We can continue popping in the chat, but if nobody else wants to come in and ask a question, can we just maybe move on to the next slide, please, Jane? That's great. Now, just before we spend a final moment on, final reflections, we would be really grateful if you could answer a poll that I'm going to put in the Teams chat. You can also access it. You can see on the screen here on AHA, but I'm going to put one up on Teams in a second. And it's really to allow us to monitor the impact of these sessions to see if they are having the positive impact that we're hoping for. So I'm going to pop something in, should come up on your screen now. So you can either use what's just popped up on your screen, or you can use the AHA slide. If you've done one, you can just close off the poll that's come up on your screen just now, so we don't have to double the results. And it's great to see that the majority of people are feeling more confident with that. If there is any other feedback around people feeling less confident, then please do send us any feedback or any comments in the chat. We're really open to receiving that information, because we want to make sure that these sessions are reaching people in the positive manner that we're trying to reach people with. So if we can just move on to the next slide, please. That's great. Thank you, Jane. So like we highlighted at the start of today's presentation, we know that there's a lot of great practice in the sector. And from our experience of hosting these webinars, you can see this evening that many of you are really keen to support one another. So we thought that we would just provide an opportunity for you to share any final reflections. So this might help frame other people's thoughts or spark an idea that they haven't yet considered. So if anybody would like to use the AHA slides, and they'll pop up on the screen, please, if you would like to share one thing that you're going to look at adopting into your setting, or you're going to consider looking into further after this evening's information. So it is about, asking families. Yeah, absolutely. As somebody said, asking families how they prefer to be contacted. Definitely consider home visits as a childminder. Feeling really inspired by Angie. That's great that you've done that. And again, that's why we are so lucky to be joined this evening by two professionals, one from the childminding sector and one from the nurseries, private nursery setting, because they both bring individualised perspectives. And we know we're joined on the call this evening by a variety of different professionals working in the sector, whether within a nursery or within your own home. So it's really great that you've been able to take some inspiration from our guest speakers. So thanks again, Angie and Lorna. I don't think I'll ever stop saying that. We're just so grateful to have you here. And it's great as well, somebody's put that they're on the right lines. Building relationships are the starter block for any partnership. And again, that's what these sessions are. It's about recognising that, yeah, what you're doing is what we would be looking for you to do, and it's aligning with best practice guidance. So it's great that these opportunities are here to allow you to reflect and really give yourself a pat on the back. Somebody else has commented that unswerving kindness, that's the final reflection. That's lovely as well. That's certainly my final reflection, that unswerving kindness that Angie spoke about. There's lots of information coming in, so what we're going to make sure that we do is ensure that these are all captured within the recording so that we can make sure that everybody's comments are visible on the recording that you can go and view afterwards. Somebody's going to share more information about the UNCRC days, people offer home visits for early entrants. However, we're going to look at potentially doing that for 3 to 5 provision as well. That's great. Asking parents what works best for them in terms of engagement and knowing what doesn't. As Angie rightly said, one size doesn't fit all, absolutely. Approaches tailored to each family. I'm going to see if there's anything coming up on the chat as well. There's lots of messages coming through. A lot about family choice and allowing them to make choices. Jennifer's actually put in the chat, sorry Anne, Jennifer's just put in the chat, anybody who would like a discussion on the UNCRC, they can email Jennifer, so she's popped her email address in the chat, so that's a real kind offering and a really good way of supporting that community of practice, so thanks very much for offering to do that. Sorry, and you come Anne.
I was just going to say, obviously there's been a fantastic contribution by people tonight, sharing some lovely ideas. So in the process of all those emails coming in thick and fast, or those questions, sorry, we might have missed some. So you will be able to see the chat after this. I will go back and go through them and see if there's any questions that we've missed, and we can always come up with a response and put it on the chat.
Thank you. Somebody said, I have lots of notes, but my main one is just to trial some new ideas for engagement. And that's exactly what it is. It's about trialing. Just similarly how one size doesn't fit all for parents, one size doesn't fit all for services or for staff. And it is about finding what works for you and your settings and your families and your staff. So definitely just, I think the key word there is trialing some new ideas. And being open and willing to adapt things as you need to go on. And that's about that cycle of improvement that we all are really familiar with. That's great. Thanks very much. So just on to the last slide, please, Jane. Just to allow me to have that opportunity again to say thank you to my colleagues for supporting the event, to our guest speakers this evening, but importantly to all of you for your time and attention this evening. It's been really great to see the level of engagement that you've had this evening, and we would like to wish you all a very pleasant evening. Thanks very much, and we hope to see you on the next webinar. Thank you.